With hundreds of video games being released each year since the late 70s, there are bound to be some terrible titles that stand out from the rest. There are several factors that determine the quality of a game, including gameplay, graphics, and story, among others. Much like with movies, in some rare cases, a game is so bad that it can be considered good, usually played for comedic purposes. In the world of video games, there are those that bring us joy, excitement, and fun. However, there are also games that reveal our darker instincts and allow us to indulge in some questionable behavior. So in this video, we are going to discuss the top 10 games that bring out the absolute worst in us. But before starting the video, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe to never miss out on any of our videos. Number 10. Planet Coaster. Planet Coaster, along with other amusement park management games, may appear innocent on the surface. However, these games have a dark side. While the goal is to create a successful amusement park and keep guests happy, some players find joy in causing chaos and destruction. From intentionally crashing roller coasters into crowds to creating elaborate mazes and overpriced restrooms, there are numerous ways to torment visitors in these simulations. Number 9. Big Rigs Over-the-Road Racing. Big Rigs Over-the-Road Racing is a game so astonishingly bad that it manages to transcend nearly every boundary put forth by some of gaming's absolute worst. Big Rigs was intended to be a racing game based on long-haul trucks that speed through various US trucking routes in some kind of effort to deliver cargo before the competition gets there first. Unfortunately, the game is a complete mess, with computer-controlled opponents who never actually move. Due to your opponent's ineptitude, you win every single time and are treated to a screen that reads, "Your winner." There is no real point to playing Big Rigs Over-the-Road Racing aside from the hilarity of driving around the game's broken environments, which are completely devoid of physics and collision detection. The game allows you to drive through buildings, trees, and other vehicles, which eventually drives off into the abyss. Big Rigs obviously received terrible reviews and is regarded by many critics as the worst game of all time. Number 8. Dragon's Dogma 2. Dragon's Dogma 2, an RPG without a traditional alignment system, allows players to embrace their darker side. While the game doesn't have a moral choice system, it offers opportunities for cruelty. Players can go on murderous rampages, throw NPCs off bridges, and complete quests in the worst possible way. The game doesn't penalize these actions, and sometimes even rewards them, allowing players to indulge in their darker instincts. Number 7. Bubsy 3D. The game that sent the franchise into dormancy for almost 2 decades, Bubsy 3D was released for the Sony PlayStation in 1996. A platforming game much like the first 3 entries in the series, this time around, developer Eidetic opted for a fully 3D environment. A part of the infancy of 3D platformers, Bubsy 3D was simply poorly made and never reached the developer's lofty goals. The game follows Bubsy, an orange bobcat and central character of the Bubsy series, who must stop a race of aliens known as the Woolies from stealing all of Earth's yarn. Bubsy 3D received overwhelmingly negative reviews from critics, with criticism being directed at the game's control, camera, voice acting, and overall personality of the main character, who became loathed by gamers. Number 6. Palworld. Palworld is a parody of Pokemon games that takes the darker aspects of the franchise to a whole new level. Players can physically beat up and capture cartoon creatures, forcing them to work in factories and build weapons. These creatures can be overworked, tortured, and driven to madness. The game even allows players to capture and force humans to fight and work, encouraging the indulgence of darker instincts. Number 5. Zelda: The Wand of Gamelon. The Wand of Gamelon is an action-adventure game developed by Animation Magic and published by Philips Interactive Media for the CD-1 in 1994. The Philips CD-1 was a commercial failure due partly to poor software, and in that regard, the Wand of Gamelon certainly contributed to its demise. There were 3 CDI Zelda games that were the product of a compromise between Philips and Nintendo after the 2 companies failed to release a CD-based add-on for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. The Wand of Gamelon stands out in that you didn't actually play as Link, but as Princess Zelda on a quest to save Link and defeat Ganon. The game features a side-scrolling view much like Zelda 2, but doesn't perform well due to its CDI's poor controller. Coupled with some slow and tedious gameplay and poor character animations, the game initially received mixed reviews, but over time, the Wand of Gamelon has proven to be one of the worst games featuring a Nintendo character. Number 4. Monopoly Go. Monopoly Go, the popular mobile game, is the epitome of manipulative and addictive gameplay. The game utilizes psychological tricks to keep players hooked on continuous microtransactions. It offers bright lights and flashy visuals to encourage players to keep spending money for a chance at winning. The game has generated billions in revenue, mainly by exploiting players' addiction to the slot machine-like mechanics. Number 3. Ride to Hell: Retribution. Retribution was originally announced in 2008, but cancelled later that same year. The game was re-announced 5 years later and hit store shelves on June 25, 2013. With some of the worst scores ever on Metacritic and game rankings, Ride to Hell was panned by critics and is considered one of the worst games in recent memory. An action-adventure game developed by Eutechnyx and published by Deep Silver, it was clear that little had been done to the game in the extra years before launch. The game opens with a terrible motorcycle driving segment, but main levels generally consist of a mixture of third-person, cover-based shooting, and beat-em-up gameplay. With an average score of 17% on Metacritic and game rankings, it's no surprise that Ride to Hell features completely broken gameplay, terrible controls, and dated graphics. It also has a ridiculous premise that offended many in the gaming community for its offensive portrayal of women, leading to even further disdain for the game. Number 2. Superman 64. Adventurers, commonly referred to as Superman 64, is an adventure video game developed and published by Titus Interactive for the Nintendo 64. The game is based on the television series Superman, the animated series. Superman 64 was released in North America on May 31st, 1999, and was largely a mess, with development being hampered by the relationship between DC Comics and Warner Bros. Although the game was unfinished and full of bugs, it somehow still made its way to store shelves. The gameplay of Superman 64 can be best described as broken, frustrating, and uninspired. The game's controls are simply terrible as a result of many gameplay glitches, such as when you are hitting an enemy and constantly miss, despite the fact that you are literally touching the enemy. Unsurprisingly, Superman 64 was heavily panned by critics, with an overall negative score of 23% at game rankings. Number 1. Hong Kong 97. Hong Kong 97 is hands down the worst video game of all time. Though the game is unlicensed and extremely hard to find a physical copy of, it's possible to find it ROM online and experience this hilarious dumpster fire of a game for yourself. From the hilarious intro song that loops over and over, to the persistent use of stolen images and foul language, it's easy to see why Nintendo wouldn't give it the official seal of quality. Released by developer Happysoft, a Japanese homebrew game company, the game is a multi-directional 2D shooter. The gameplay is terrible and frustratingly difficult, with players being sent back to the beginning after dying from being hit just once. Hong Kong 97 has been called a kusoke in Japan, which translates to shitty game, and is definitely a game considered to be so bad that it's good. Let us know your opinion in the comments section below. This was all for today. Hope you liked the video. Do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Stay safe, and we will be back soon with another video.